Confederacy of dunks. Toronto Raptors. Scotty B. We the North, baby.
I know. I want to mouth that. I'm gonna start doing that.
That should be your thing.
Yeah. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Confederacy of Dunks basketball podcast. I'm your host, Freddie Rivas, here with co-host and producer Andy Hull. What's up, Andy?
Hey, man. How are you doing?
I'm great.
We had a real nice Roy Halladay conversation before this started, and it was really great.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, just this to subtext to this basketball podcast you're about to listen to. Roy Halladay, Blue Jay legend and Phillies legend as well. We talked about him. We like him. Special guest here. I'm always excited when he's here. I don't want to put pressure on you, but he often comes in with some really nice, cool stats. But listen, if you didn't do, that's a lot of work, right? So no worries. But yeah, Raptors HQ. He always does news hits for basketball. You know him, you love him. Make some noise, even if you're at home alone. Haven't said that in a bit for Jay Rosales.
Haven't said that in a bit. You're right.
Thank you.
Woo!
Very happy to be here to the All Dad Pod. But yeah, you and I have already been going back and forth a bit on trying to coordinate schedules. So I'm happy it's finally here. We can definitely do a pod again. So this is good. This is fun. I'm excited.
I'm happy people don't hate me because I always message them 10 hours before the pod being like, can you pod? And I think you're the type of person who's like, yeah, I can't, no worries. But I think there's definitely a handful of people who are like, you're pissing me off by asking me same day. But
I'm not one of them. I'm not one of them.
You're not one of them.
That.
Okay, let's jump into this. I was saying before the pod that this is like a classic list pod. So we got a bunch of lists coming out and we're going to be angry about it or we're not. We're going to see. It's like end of year list style, like with music or movies. They're meant for conversation. So whether you disagree or agree, doesn't really matter. I think perception is one of my biggest interests in basketball and just kind of like how, things can be so off sometimes. But so let's go to the first one. The Ringer put out their top 100 players. So this is a projection going forward. Obviously, it's reputation, all that kind of stuff. And so I want you each to pick a guy who you feel like is overrated in these rankings. And a guy who's underrated in these rankings. Jay, let's start with you. Let's do, you pick first. Let's do one at a time. So give me an over or under, and we'll start there.
Yeah, no, I the way I looked at this list is, okay, we're looking at top 100, and this is as numbersy as I will get with this list, but I look at top 100 and I think about how much goes into starting a team, right? So I'm thinking, okay, well, the top 30, if you pick anyone in the top 30, they should be your star player for any of the 30 teams. Well, not any of the 30 teams, but if the league was to be divided evenly and value was equally distributed, the top 30 should all be leaders. So I don't have much to complain about with the top 30. You can make a case for each of those 30 gentlemen as leaders of those teams. It's the second group of 30 where I start to nitpick and I think, okay, well, that means that the folks from ranges 31 to 60, they should technically be the second best player on your team.
Right.
And that's where I find that we have a lot of overrating here. And because it's the Ringer, it's very easy to point out any Boston Celtics that they overrate. So I'm going to go straight to number 37 here, or 38, Derek White and or Drew Holiday. Both amazing players, contributed to the Celtics championship. There's no way they're winning the championship without either of those two. So I'm saying both of them are overrated because you're not winning a championship if one of those guys or both of those guys are your second best player. So I'm going to give this to a pair of Celtics because I hate Boston.
I absolutely love this. Just the walkthrough of your logic. I don't think it gets talked about enough when people are doing the whole like, is he a number one dance? That there are 30 teams in the NBA, so every team, has to have a max guy and then like kind of like a second max guy. Like that's how generally the structure of the NBA is built. So when you think about max contracts, like roughly there should be like 60 max guys. That doesn't mean that they're superstars, and a lot of them are not even all-stars. But like that's how the money and the perception of the league works. So like, I really like that. Also, I'm glad you banged off some Celtics because when like with this list, I feel like right away for me comes up, Celtics, Lakers are generally their players get massively overrated, just because of like the media market sort of thing. So I actually challenge myself to do no Celtics and no Lakers because I feel like I'm such a like hater by default. And with that said, I'm so happy you did too. So like
you got me, yeah, you covered for me too. So
yeah, deeply satisfying. Although I will nitpick a little bit with Drew Holiday only because I feel like in general he's got like major underrated vibes. And like anytime there's like a guy who, you review in history and you're like, wait a second, starting point guard for the Bucks won a championship. Couple years later, starting point guard for the Celtics won a championship. Like that's pretty nuts. And I feel like point guard specifically, yeah, it's this unique, like, he's had an interesting approach. Like ever since his trade from New Orleans, where I feel like his value was lowest there. I remember being like, I think New Orleans is not calculating this properly. Like this guy is a winner. But Derek White, oh man, like, is that to me ever an example of someone who's like I get it. He made the jump from like role player to like legit, like very talented starter. But there's a huge number of people on this list that are better than Derek White, straight up. So love it, love it, love it. Andy, I mean, if you have any comments on this, jump in. If you don't, give me your underrated or overrated player.
Okay, whichever one I want to go first.
Yeah.
Okay. Looking at the list, I gotta say though, like you're right about the Celtic stuff, but I will say I think the Ringer has put together a overall, like this is a talking point thing for guys like us.
For sure.
That's the whole point of this. Nothing's definitive, obviously.
Yeah.
But like I gotta say, I think they did a pretty decent job of putting 100 of the players together, and in general getting everyone in kind of the right sort of tier and all that kind of stuff, and even down to some of the numbers. I'm like this is the kind of list where you look at it and you'll go, oh, what, that guy's only at like number like 24 or whatever, and then you start looking at the guys above him and you're like, yeah, actually, okay, that kind of makes sense, Yeah. It's like it's a thing of like, okay, yeah, he can go on a team, but who's he going to replace? Like who's he taking in the spot above him? And it's actually, I think they did pretty good with that. I do think Jason Tatum is overrated on this list. He's listed at number 5, but that's not my pick.
If you're a Celtics fan, you stopped listening to this podcast a long time ago. So I think we're in the clear,
I think he is a bit overrated on the list, but that's not my pick. Actually, I'm going to leave my overrated pick for later because I kind of have to think about it a little bit more. But my underrated picks are a little easier. I think they did Pascal little bit under, but like not terribly so, not like insultingly so. But I
just want to say thank you. It's my favorite player. So
Pascal is at number 33. And I think he could have been up a spot or two, along with some of the other guys with him too, like Kat's just right above him. I think he could probably go up higher too. Anyways, my pick though, this is weird because I'm not like, generally speaking, I'm not like a big supporter of this guy, but James Harden is down at 39. And I just feel like that's a little too low for this guy who kind of had to like pick up all the slack for his team, especially in the last playoffs, and just like really willed them to the wins that they did get. And he's such a prolific scorer. He's one of these elite guys, and just seeing him drop to 39, yes, he isn't the player he once was, and he's, but I think he's like figuring out this part of his career, and I actually think he's we're seeing him like mold into the player that he kind of needs to be, and I think that's kind of surprising considering who James Harden is, So actually, I'm kind of having a come around moment on Harden, where like I was never a huge fan of his. I like his game. I love watching him play. He's obviously a super entertaining player and all that. But now I'm kind of like, I'm like 39. Really? You'd rather have Derek White than James Harden? I mean, like maybe yes, because he's like a bit of a nightmare to have. But like we're talking like just like guys who can hoop. Like give me James Harden over like a lot of these guys. Rudy Gobert? I don't think so.
Yeah,
I'm
if we
taking
think
James.
about also the whole logic about the top 30 are guys that could lead a team. He could totally lead a team. That's why I
Yeah.
think I agree with you in that he should be in top 30 at least.
I think so. I
Top
think so.
five.
At least a couple of spots higher. Okay, Freddie losing his mind. Yeah, swap with Tatum. Tatum's 39, Harden's 5. I was just shocked to see him so low. There's a couple of other players that are, I think, criminally underrated in this, but I'll let you, Freddie, give yours first, and maybe we can talk about some of those other guys.
Yeah, so I mean, again, lots of cases for lots of guys, and I feel like it's really like a projection forward. And with these types of projections, I think you see a lot of guys who this often skews young, right?
Yeah,
The very
makes sense.
top tier, the guys like Kawhi, KD, LeBron, they get their like respect. They've just done so much that they don't kind of get dropped. But then I feel like you see a bunch of guys under 24 who are way higher than they should be. But so I'm going to start with my underrated. My underrated is a guy who's 30 years old, who has no business being as low on this list as he is, and was injured all last year. So I'm going to go with Bradley Beal, number 70. So banged up all last year, didn't play. The year before that, with Washington, obviously not a great team, hasn't had a lot of like major success. Bradley Beal is to your point, Jay, like full number one on a team. Yes, he goes to Phoenix. There's fit issues. Phoenix didn't work out, right? Like, just sort of like bad vibes there. They didn't achieve. And I think his write-up says it all. Just so the sort of one line they give them all. Recovering all-star, looking for a new lease on life as an elite third banana. First of all, that's a bit of a salad of a sentence, a bit of a word salad. But second of all, it's like there's so many labels crunched into that like what you're saying, Andy, with Harden. If you take a step back and you're like, okay, hold on. Like, how good is Bradley Beal? Assuming these injuries aren't an indicator of like he's kind of like he's so banged up that he's done, like Oladipo style. But he's proven himself for many years. 30, still in his prime. I think it's pretty criminal to have him 70 on this list.
I think that's fair.
Yeah,
Very
I think so too. I saw I that did stand out to me a little bit when I saw it because of how, of the injury and stuff, and obviously that's taken into account with the rating and all that. But like, yeah, there's still the idea that Beal's he's still a pretty elite guy. What did you guys think of RJ at 99? I think I kind of expected it personally.
I'll say this. I feel like that's kind of fair in the sense that like RJ, he's fighting against perception as well.
Yeah.
And he sort of has to have like a long stretch of good play to get, a better reputation. And, with the Knicks playing with Brunson, playing with Randall, he was put in a position where he kind of was like scapegoated, right, to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. And then he's come to the Raptors and like did really well statistically on a team that lost so many games. And I feel like a lot of Raptors fans, me included, are super excited because we're like, this guy's actually good and he's 24. You know what? Can I actually, because I was going to use him as an example for my overrated guy. So I saw this in a tweet, but statistically, let me just find where he is because he's really high. He's way too high. But he has almost identical stats to RJ, except RJ's stats are a little bit better. And that's Jalen Williams at 40.
There's
also ahead of Scotty, which is, I think, pretty absurd. But Jalen Williams. This is sort of like Thunder. Everybody's all in. this is so exciting. They're going to kill it. Jalen Williams, check out the stats. Same age as RJ, and RJ he scores more points. I think, I wish I had it right in front of me, but like, it's like he has a better percentage. And like he might lose on a couple stats, but like the overall statistical profile, like RJ has a better statistical profile. Now he doesn't have like the sort of like their PRs are headed in like opposite directions. So yeah, my overrated, and not again, he's a fantastic player, deserves to be on this list, but like everything about the Thunder is like, it's just one of those things where it's like Jill Williams, MIP, Chet, Defensive Player of the Year, Shea, is going to be MVP, Thunder, not going to lose a game all year, championship. Like there's a bit of like,
they're the it team. They're the it team.
They're the it team.
Yeah.
And again, why wouldn't they be? They're so exciting. But yeah, there's a kind of like, yeah, like especially in the analytics community, they're the it team. So Jalen Williams for sure is my number 4.
And it's funny that that's an incredible comparison. That's one of those eye openers, right? It's like then why is there such a huge gap? And I felt like with RJ's ranking, he was kind of a scapegoat in this trade. It was kind of like he was like the Danny Green to the Kawhi in the trade. When the Raptors first acquired him, it was like, okay, well, he's more of the salary filler. The prize here is IQ, but he has really outperformed what was expected of him. He's actually playing up to his toxic contract, and I think he's playing up to the level, at least in this first little bit with the Raptors, to the level that was expected of him when he was first drafted out of Duke, right? So yeah, I agree. I think that the comparison is just a bit of an eye-opener for me. I do think that if this is the type of list where you're going to be forward-looking, then he should be higher, because he's already shown with the Raptors that he is better than what he was in New York. And I think that shows a bit of an inconsistency, I guess, in the way that these things have been ranked. But here we go. We're falling into the trap.
Yeah, this goes to the thing of like, I also think with these lists, the Ringer is centered in LA, obviously with Bill Simmons being a huge Boston guy. Like these are the big markets that they're looking at. And if you're playing on a, and not just small market, but more like just like a maybe a team that isn't like OKC, big success, their games are getting nationally televised, MVP players, high draft picks, stuff like that. Obviously, they're the it team. If you're the team that's like underperforming, if you're like a Toronto, Toronto's the prime example. We were, the Canadian team, but teams like us in the league right now, like obviously our guys are getting way less attention on a national level as well. So those players are just going to get underrated. And then you got RJ on top of that, the whole Nick stuff and the whole like pure scapegoating that was happening with him and stuff. Like he is I think the most underrated player on the list. Like he could be up here in the 60s pretty easily. I think he could be easily 30 spots higher than he is.
And just because I was like, okay, I want to give listeners a little bit of perspective here, because so I'm just not like pulling out of my ass here. There is a couple categories that Jalen, these are the career stats. There is a couple categories that Jalen does beat him in. So career stats, RJ 18.4 points, Jalen 16.5. Rebounds, RJ 5.4, Jalen 4.2. Assists per game, RJ 2.9, Jalen 3.9. Jalen has him also on steals, 1.3 versus 0.6, and then blocks is basically tied. And Jalen does have the better field goal percentage and 3-point percentage, and free throw percentage. So definitely, like I think you could say, hey, Jalen Williams more efficient, which is like that's fine for me. But it highlights these lists and perception, because these guys are like, you can't really make the argument that it's like, well, Jalen's on the up and up. It's like same age. So
I think that's the other shocker is like folks forget about because RJ came in really early, that even though he's a veteran, he's the same age as some of these up and comers, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, right? People look at years in the league, and then it's like, obviously, if RJ's had more, it's like, well, he's had more time to cook in the league. But it's like, well, he came in younger. That's arguably harder, right? So, yeah, it's. I don't know. We're we're a Raptors podcast, so we're gonna give our boy the benefit of the doubt on this and be like, you should have been
RJ, top 5. Come on,
top 5. Come on, get out of there. Get out of there. What about overrated?
So yeah, mine was Jalen Williams.
Right.
Jay, who's your overrated?
No, I did my overrated. I could do my underrated, and my underrated
you need to do
is someone who is right in the middle of the list, or in the late 40s there, but I feel like he has number 1 potential. He could lead a team, and that's Alperen Sengun. I really like his game. He's like, I don't know who to compare him to. Like he could be the next Jokic. He's got that kind of game where it's a big man who can score inside, outside, passes really well. Like. There is some Nikola Jokic potential in there, and the fact that he's down at 46 when Houston is one of those teams that when we do this pod next year and we're talking about the IT team, it very well could be the Rockets, and leading that team would be Sengun. And I think he's I wouldn't say criminally underrated, but he's definitely a top 30 player by the time the season hits November. Yeah, he's on my underrated list. I want to add more to that, but I think that makes the case there. Agree? Disagree?
I'm with you for the most part. I think Houston has a little bit of like it team stuff, and I want to see them in a more competitive scenario. But I do think that Sengun is kind of like just killing it for Houston, and it's not the type of guy I feel like who will be held back when his team gets better. I think he'll just be better and get more shine. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Andy?
No, I'm with you. I think it makes sense. My overrated. I said I wasn't gonna pick him.
Uh-oh.
But I'm looking at this list, and I'm honestly, for me, I was like, I don't know.
You're like RJ.
Like I can say maybe this guy should be one above another player, or a little bit here and there. And I don't know. This one, I'm like, you put Jason Tatum over Steph Curry? Like, really? You put him over Kevin Durant? Really? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. And I'm just looking at the list. I'm like, LeBron James? I don't know, man. Like, yeah, listen, Tatum's good, but I'm still picking those guys personally. Devin Booker?
Wait,
I don't know.
Didn't you watch Team USA where they all deferred to Jason Tatum?
And you know what? Maybe that's having too much of an effect on my opinion, because I am kind of thinking, like, when's the last time I saw them play? And it was, like, obviously the Olympics. So maybe that's weighing too heavy. Maybe if I was remembering more about the finals, I'd
well, no, like when Steph was shooting, everyone's like, "You idiot! Pass to Jason."
Yeah, on the bench, give it to the guy on the end of the bench. I guess that's kind of who it has to be for me. I'm just, because the thing is like, okay, once you, much like Jay, you were saying, it's like the top 30. Okay, we're pretty set there. There's not much to argue about there. I agree. But then when you get down into like the 30s, 40s, 50s, it's like, well, these guys are pretty low on the list for me to say they're overrated. You know,
when you're looking at overrated, you're looking at you're looking
at guys who are up there, right?
Yeah,
like that's just what we're looking for here. So what am I going to argue? Like, oh, Chris Middleton's 57, he should be 80. Like, why? I don't know.
Picking someone like overrated who's like 98 or 99, like who barely made the list.
Like, what is he doing on this list?
Like, get off of this list. Herb Jones,
No, the one that actually, if we're looking at the top of the list, like the one that bugs me is putting Jalen Brunson above LeBron. Like I don't know, that just doesn't sit well with me, and maybe that's because I'm like team LeBron is the greatest of all time, but also it's like even just look at the Olympics, right? I mean, who did they really want to lead this team? They chose LeBron. They didn't think about Jalen Brunson. He wasn't even in their top 12. They even chose Jason Tatum over him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Jalen Brunson in 11 is it bugs me.
Al Horford at number 100 is the most overrated player on
Thank you for saying it.
It's tough to not choose these Boston guys because they're the only ones who seem like what like a little out of place.
Oh my
Everyone
god, I
else
thought
is
you were
pretty solid.
joking. He's really on
No,
this list?
he's on the list. He's number
Oh my
100.
gosh. What is he doing on this list?
I know, right? So maybe that's my answer. It's the combination of 5 and 100. It's it's Jason Tatum and it's Al Horford. I really didn't think I was going to come out just hating on Boston so hard like that.
No, I
especially
think-
after
Easy,
especially after
It's
Jay
so
set us up.
easy.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
All jokes
There you
aside,
go.
I'm actually pissed Peyton Pritchard's not on this list.
I'm sure he is, and he'll be on the list next year.
Call them up. Yeah.
I must have seen him. Or am I like losing my mind? Where? Oh, there he is. Okay. I was gonna say,
Here's a
where's
question.
OG?
After
55.
after the playoffs and after the Olympics, I mean, this doesn't take into account the Olympics, and that's fair. Is Jamal Murray too high on this list? Don't get me wrong, my Canadian boy. Obviously, we love him. Champion, number 20 though on the list. Is that a bit too high?
I
Is
think
a
that
place or
might
two
be a
too high?
little bit high, but I feel like he's to me is in that Beal territory of like he's had an injured year and everyone's like he's toast. And I'm like, I don't know. I think guys get injured and then like have a down
I agree.
year and
I was
it's
listening
okay.
to something today where they were like, is it over for the Nuggets? Like, and I'm like, I think Jamal Murray was just injured. Like I think it's kind of mostly what was happening there.
Oh,
Obviously some different players and stuff, but like the core is still there.
My honorable mention, just because I'm like for him to be 30th on this list is like you've simply forgot how Ja Morant looks on the
yeah.
basketball court.
Yeah.
Like for him to be like he's 30th, it's like okay, well, there's at least like 15 guys above him on this list who he will humiliate several times in a single quarter. So I don't know. He's like Ja Morant was like, when he was on his way, before like a bunch of shit started happening, he was like kind of like fringe MVP type guy. So like Ja Morant, like, yeah, maybe he's not top 10, but like, I don't know, man. Ja Morant 30th. I don't understand really. Like, I mean, again, it could be a thing.
Not playing the season before is like a way to drop you 15 spots on the list, I suppose.
Sure,
really.
yeah, but if that's the case too, then it's like, how do you have a guy like Kawhi super high?
I mean, that's fair. That's fair.
If reliability is a thing, right?
But this is a pretty well put together list, and I gotta give credit where credit's due to the webmaster over at the Ringer. I really love the like way that this list is like the way you can scroll through it and pull down the little stats and everything. It's very pleasing to the eye. It's
very user friendly.
Satisfying. It's very user friendly. You can filter by team. You just want to see the Raptors on your list? No problem. We got 3 on there: IQ at 92, RJ at 99, and Scotty at 41.
Yep. Okay, let's jump to another list, coaches list. So I want to shout out frequent guest of this podcast, Matt McCready. We have done a couple coaches lists. We love this shit. This is like it gets really granular, and it's one of the hardest things because you have a whole contingent of basketball fans that are like, coaches don't matter. And I feel like that's something Bill Simmons popularized. And I kind of get the idea, right? I get the nugget of the idea, like coaches don't matter, on the basketball court. Like you have LeBrons and Lowrys and like quarterbacks and guys, whatever, like actually doing it. But my main counter to that is everything matters. Like you know what I mean? In such high level sports, the coaches matter, the assistant coaches matter, the scouts matter. Like every little possible thing that could potentially matter does. So of course the coaches, have a big effect. Anyhow, the like criteria for this is always nebulous. So I'm just going to rifle off, like, I'm not going to go through their explanations, but CBS Sports put out a coaching list and it's tiered, and their criteria is as follows: track record, performance against expectations, points of emphasis. I will just touch on that a little bit. That's kind of like, it's a bit more analytical. Like, do they feel like this coach is like heading in the right direction? Like, creativity, player development, rotation management, and people management. So I do think that's the right type of criteria. And how it's weighted is, yeah. We'll see. This is by Sam Quinn. So Jay, let me go to you first. Again, start me with your underrated or overrated. You take a pick.
Underrated. This is a tough one because I have a couple of candidates. I really think that the way you to analyze a list like this is different than how we analyze players, because the players list we could analyze it a couple of different ways, right? I mean, you pointed out at the top that it's kind of a forward looking list, so I get it. Skews young. But you could also look at it as what have they accomplished, right? Then you're looking at a list where LeBron James is at the top or whatever it might be. With coaches, it's different because it's a lot of it is not reliant on, like, they don't hold all of the proverbial cards that they've been dealt, right? So it's hard to say that someone like, my choice here is one of them is going to be Greg Popovich, because he's been dealt a difficult hand with the roster and everyone aging out and all that. Like, of course, he has Victor Wembanyama, and now he's going to have Chris Paul, and they've got a growing team. But it's like he can only do so much, and he is the greatest coach of all time. So it's hard to prove that when the roster you've been given isn't so great. So he does what he can with it. So I'm willing to put aside the last couple of years and say chalk that up more to the roster that he's been dealt, and say that he is underrated. He should be
For sure.
perpetually in the top 5, top 3 conversation. The fact that he's down to 14th that's just wrong. That's just wrong.
It's wrong. It's disrespectful to basketball.
Yeah. And that is my answer, but I want to give like a slight asterisk to someone here.
Sure.
Just because no, you know what? I'll save it for my overrated. So I'm good. Greg Popovich, criminally underrated. I don't know why he's at 14. That's just wrong.
That's just wrong.
To the author's credit, he does spend the most ink like talking about Popovich. Like, he gives Popovich his own tier and like really goes through the reasons.
And Sam Quinn's good. Don't get me wrong. I love reading Sam Quinn. He's great.
But I thought the same thing when I was reading it. I'm like, yeah, you're spending a lot of ink to convince me of this, but it's not working. You know, like
exactly.
It's pop. Like, it's pop, man. Come on, let's go.
Yeah.
Andy, you want to jump in?
Yeah. So for me, underrated. Okay, yeah, I think I was kind of surprised to see JB Bickerstaff so low. I thought he would be given a little more, and I thought he'd be given a little.
He's
bit
the type of guy who never gets any love.
Wasn't he like up for Coach of the Year or something?
He's been the interim. Yeah. Yes, I think he holds the record for interim coach. I feel like he's been the interim coach like 5 times. Yeah. And then finally someone's like, this guy is actually a crime. He's never had a job. Like,
it's wild. Yeah, so like whatever. He's been coaching the Cavs and like improved that team. So when he took over, they were 22-50, and then next year they're 44-38, and then they go on to be a 50-win team after that, and then they sort of live there as, you know, second place in the Central there. But like that's a good improvement. And, you know, I mean, obviously it's just talented players there, but I don't know. Bill Simmons says coaching doesn't matter. That's nuts for Bill Simmons to say. That's because he watched Doc Rivers coach the Celtics to a championship. That's why he said that. But like, this is a guy, you know, he lost the locker room. But like, if you look back in NBA history, some of the best coaches of all time have done that. Almost every like Hall of Fame coach has at some point or another lost their locker room, or they've had some disagreement with some star player or whatever, right? They're trying to implement a system that the players don't want to play, and it's like, well, you know, yes, you know, great coaches are like really good at getting players to, like, you know, bend to their will and or just agree to their system, whatever, what have you. And I mean, we've seen essentially 4 years of head coaching from this guy, and he brought a team from the basement to being a surprise playoff team and being up for Coach of the Year. So like, how is he rated 23rd, especially, and if the listeners aren't like watching the list with us, the bottom 5 coaches are not even technically rated. Like, the bottom tier is a we don't know enough tier. So JJ Redick, Brian Keefe, Charles Lee, Jordy Fernandez, and Darko Rakovic are all as like, well, I haven't seen enough from them, so I can't actually rate them. So we're talking the third worst coach that's ranked here is JB Bickerstaff. I just don't think that's right. It's just
And
weird
unfortunately for him, I mean, you're right when you're saying like he just kind of doesn't get the love that is deserved, and it's probably going to happen again because he's coaching the Pistons, who
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tough team to turn
tough.
around. And
If he turns the Pistons around, like, and I mean, like, if the Pistons are a play-in team, coach of the year.
yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, coach of the
If he does it in
decade.
2 years, it's coach of the year, you know? Like, yeah. And right above him, Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
Doc Rivers.
I admittedly do not hate Doc Rivers as like it's like he's the type of players type of coach I won't like stump for. I won't be like back off. I love Doc, but I do think that he's this guy who's like he has a lot more good than bad, and like so much of his like kind of like playoff stuff is both fair, but it's circumstantial, and like he's become a punching bag. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I think people are a bit harsh on him, but also I won't defend it all the way, and I do also think it's funny.
It's definitely funny.
You know what I mean? It's also pretty fucking funny. So
It's definitely funny.
Yeah. So I'm pretty comfortable with my choices on this list. I feel like so it's in their criteria, but to me, you know, it's a very results driven thing. Right. So like, for instance, like Pop, right? Like, yeah, he's had some rough years, but it's Pop. Like if you have won a championship or multiple championships, you simply cannot be you can't be looked at that poorly. It's just so hard to do, and you can't take it away from the coach. It's so hard to do. And yeah, it's a kind of like throwing a baby out with the bathwater type thing. When you're too low on a championship coach. So with that said, I'm going to start with underrated. And I feel like there's been so much Celtics slander on this list that it's probably going to surprise people. But you got Joe Mazzulla at 11. So I get it. His quotes are insane. Like they'll be like, how was Jason Tatum's game today? He's like, I don't know. How is Mary Magdalene's plight? And you'll be like, what? I don't understand the question.
Yeah,
and he'll be like, do you understand how Moses parted the water? And you're like, I'm so sorry. Like, can we please talk about basketball? He's like, did Jesus? But yeah, Joe Mazzulla, 1 year, 1 team, 1 championship. You can't put a guy like that at 11, right? You have Nick Nurse at 2nd.
Nick Nurse at 2 is pretty nuts, especially since
Nick Nurse for me, he was at 2 when it was 1 year, 1 championship.
Yeah,
but then there was a bunch of years after.
Well, this guy does us talk about the Raptors championship season as if it just happened. It's nuts.
I mean,
he's one of us, really.
I was here. It was great.
Yeah, it was great. It was awesome.
But yeah, so that's part of my thing where it's like, if this is next year and Joe Mazzulla, whatever, like I get it. The team's stacked, right? But I think sometimes there's this idea. It's like, what are you supposed to do? Not win a championship? It's like, yes, many teams don't. Lots of stacked teams don't win a championship. It's really hard. You can't be perfect and then get ranked 11th, in my opinion.
I think that's a fair point.
And then you also have Ime Udoka at 8. So it's like, that's interesting. He also had a stacked Celtics team, albeit Marcus Smart and, no Drew and no KP. But it's like the Rockets were fun. They weren't great, So, I mean, yeah, like, again, it's a results-driven thing. So I feel like Joe Mazzulla at 11, not fair.
Yeah, I was very tempted to put that, but I was like, no, we've had too much Celtics talk in the other one. I'm not going to do it.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, like, I just hate them, so.
But you had to do it. No, it works. It works. I agree with that. I think he's underrated. It's kind of weird how, like, he's below the guy he replaced, and yet he's the one who won the championship, right? Mm-hmm. So
yeah, that's
it's
weird.
Just very odd.
Bit weird.
Who's next?
Jay,
What do I got? I have overrated, I believe.
I
No, wait.
think, yeah.
Yeah, I got overrated. Okay. Before I get into my overrated, I will say that there is one who is perfectly rated. And I have to shout out my half Filipino brother, in Eric Spolstra. I think he is rightfully number
I
one
agree.
and rightfully in his own tier.
Yeah.
Um,
He's done
I,
it all. Like
everything. Yeah.
he's overachieved.
Yeah.
Basically, he's always overachieved, which
Yeah.
includes championships. Like he's the best. I agree.
Yeah.
The thing the guy brings up, care to guess how many times Eric Spoelstra's teams have fallen behind in a series 2-0?
Oh,
3 times.
I love that stat.
And then it's like all three came either in the NBA Finals or against a team that reached the NBA Finals. And then there's like just a bunch more reasons about why it's actually like not that bad that happened to them. You know, like
Yeah.
it's really like there's like 5 more sentences about how actually it was this and it was this and it was this, and you're like, oh my god, okay, great.
Yeah, he's a master at preparing his teams.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll stick around that area in the top 5 there in terms of overrated. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying about Greg Popovich. And okay, if you're going to be looking at current versus like the whole body of work, I don't know why Rick Carlisle is up there at number 3. You guys were talking about championships, and Carlisle has one. So, and that was 13 years ago. So, okay, fine. The Pacers did really well this past season, but I'm sorry. Like, are they a finals contender? Are they anything that's just blowing our minds? I don't think so. I don't think that merits being the 3rd best coach in the NBA for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, him being up at number 3. I mean, again, he's an outstanding coach, and it's amazing what he's done in his career. And I actually do, they're one of the teams that I'm going to keep my eye on specifically because he's the coach. I think they're going to overperform this year again, but not top 3, man. Yeah, I don't have him in that tier. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's great. I love Rick Carlisle, but like even just looking at like. So behind Rick Carlisle, Steve Kerr? I don't think so. Ty Lue, I mean, he's had some rough years with the Clippers, but 4 finals appearances, 1 championship. Like, yeah, I think it's a results thing, and I'm with you with Carlisle. Who's your other guy, Andy?
It's got to be Nick Nurse at 2. You know,
okay,
it is. It is.
Oh, really?
And
I agree. I mean,
and it's
Steve,
like
Steve
both
Kerr
of you agree.
It's
Where do you
like it is kind of wild that Sam Quinn here mentions all the things good about Nick Nurse, and they all just basically, except for Joel Embiid playing his best basketball under Nick Nurse, which like okay, yes, that just makes sense. That everything else is about the Raptors 2019 championship. Like, I'm sorry, we can't reference something that happened 5 years ago to be like he's the best coach right now. Like everything else is about the previous season. So it just that doesn't make any sense to me. And like I still like Nick Nurse. I don't have any super hard feelings towards Nick Nurse or anything. Like he got us a championship. He will always be in the the echelon of all-time great coaches in Toronto coach history, whatever the sport. But number 2 to me is a bit silly, like the 76ers go down and then what happened? Or sorry, the 76ers. Embiid goes down, and then what happens to that team? Like we're just like, oh well, they don't have their big guy, so no one's really expecting anything out of them, and like that's the exact argument that he's saying that he's making for Nick Nurse being the best coach. It's like, well, if that's true, if they were such a great defensive team, like what happened to them when one of their players was missing? Well, they didn't do what everyone thought they were going to do. So it's like, I'm very interested to see what the 76ers are going to do this year, because obviously everyone's calling them to be so good, and I don't think they're going to be nearly as good as people say they will be. I think they'll be up there and one of the top teams in the East, but I don't know, man. I don't know about number 2.
How good would Philly have to perform this year to merit him being that high? Like, would they have to win the championship?
Yeah.
For me, yeah. If you get Paul George add into that team, and you're like, Nick Nurse is the second best coach in the NBA, it's
Mhm.
like, okay, then they should be winning this
They
championship.
Okay. Okay.
I think so.
I
But
have him
uh,
in that tier. I have him in that tier
there-
though. I don't have him like, for example, Rick Carlisle. I don't have him in that tier. But Nick Nurse, I would keep him in that tier. Maybe not number 2, but I would have him in that tier still.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Andy.
No, I just think that there's other coaches that should have been in this tier, and I don't even know if I'd put Nick Nurse in the top 5. Right? Like, I think you could, like, Mark Daigneault with the Thunder, even like Thibodeau's like Nick's team. Like, that's, I mean, I just like that team so much. Did he run them directly into the ground? Yes, but hey, listen, buddy, you've got OG Anunoby over there. You got to cool it with that stuff. That
And he
guy
won't.
barely has. Yeah. But like this Missoula with the Celtics winning a championship at 11, like you guys said, like it's crazy to me that he deserves to be near the top at least, because we saw them repeatedly not get it done, and then he comes in and then it gets done. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, Missoula should be in that top tier. For
I
sure.
just finished reading the Three Ring Circus book, and like, never have I had more like understanding of what an NBA coach can do by listening to Phil Jackson talk about managing Kobe and Shaq on the same roster. Like, if that was any other coach, that team is a disaster. Yes, they're obviously two super talented guys, and that team still would have been like probably well performing, because you can see when those guys were, but like when Kobe wasn't on the team, they were better for a pretty long stretch. It's kind of nuts, right? People like tend to forget that. And that's and Phil Jackson, one of the greatest of all time, of course. He came along. He proved to me, at least as a young NBA fan, that like, oh, coaches, like, I used to be like, oh, whatever, like, Phil Jackson has the best players every year, like, he's not a good coach. And then you spend a little bit looking into it, and you're like, oh, there's a lot to this job, right? There's a ton of it, and so I think that, like, they're not really looking at a lot of that stuff here, I guess.
I mostly agree with you, Andy. I feel like I've honestly ragged on Nurse too much in on my own podcast, but I think he sort of set up the analogy I feel like that I still have for him, which is that when he came to the Raptors, he was given a Lamborghini, and he drove the hell out of it, and he deserves all the credit in the world for that, similar to Joe Mazzulla. But subsequently, he was given other cars, and he didn't drive them as well, and he tried to drive them the same. So he had a golf cart a couple times, and he tried to drive it like a Lambo. It didn't work, crashed. And I think that there's a line at the end of this that says, like, he doesn't get enough flack for like how he breaks guys down like Tom Thibodeau. And it's like, no, he doesn't. And Raptors fans know that intimately, right?
Yes.
He drove a lot of guys into the ground. So but again, I think he's a really, really brilliant coach and deserves to be high. I'd love to see like a redraft of the one championship coaches, like just the guys who've won one championship, no one else, no multiples, and no one who hasn't won a championship. I'd love to see like how, like, just parse through that. But mine, my overrated is the whole wonder kind category. Listen, that's fun. It's exciting, but I do need you to show up and win. And so I'm just going to read you Will Hardy's 2 seasons as a head coach.
Yeah.
37 wins in his first year, 31 wins in his second year. Does that sound like the 7th best coach in the NBA? What are we doing here? That's
higher than Joe Mazzulla, higher than Ime Udoka.
Yeah, and it's like higher than Doc? No, it's like
the Jazz are prepared for every game they play.
He
mixes and matches his players and finds unorthodox lineup combinations that outperform their talent.
That's true. That's true. But also, like,
in a few years, the Jazz will be where the Thunder are.
Sure. That's all good. I need you to make the play in. And I feel like it's like it's a results type thing.
But results can't be all of it, right? Like,
it's true. That's true.
they can't be everything. I agree with you. By the way, but I just think like there can be a little thing of like, let's admire this coach who currently has a underperforming roster, but like you also got to take into consideration that like you we've said it a million times. It's the opposite of the other list. We're like, Joe Mazzulla should be number one. Like we're like, put Mazzulla higher. He won a championship. God damn it,
Yeah,
you got guys that are won championships that are lower. Yeah.
Shame on me. No. Okay, let's wow, we really made a meal of this, but
we really did. Jesus, we've been talking for an hour about this almost.
Yeah, so we'll have to go through our Raptor stuff a little bit quicker, but that's okay because the Raptor stuff is
lists are fun to talk about, guys.
It's fluffy.
Bottom line, it's fun to talk about.
Jay, where are you at? Moving on to Raptors, where are you at with this? Sorry, I should say I think everyone is either should be or is unanimously happy for Christian Coloco to have recovered and be back in the NBA. Like it's seemed really sort of tenuous there for a little while. So like just a flat out congrats to him. But I think selfishly as a Raptor fan, a lot of folks, myself included, were hoping that his return would bring him. I was excited for him, right? I like watching him play. Like I was curious to see where he was going to go. We needed a center, etc. Where are you at? Like, what's your how upset are you at? Kind of like, I don't want to say like mismanaging, but like, where are you at with him not being on our team? Is that like, how much does that bother you?
Scale of 1 to 10, I'm at an 8. I'm pretty bitter. And this is because it's not so much that this was, I don't think that this was mismanaged. I think that the Raptors got dealt a pretty unlucky hand here. And that's because, well, first of all, he was waived in order for the Siakam deal to kind of go through. So the reasoning at the time seemed odd. Then you find out about his health condition. It's like, oh, okay, I see. This makes sense. Like he needs to, hopefully he gets back. And thankfully, to your point earlier, yes, unanimously, everyone's happy that he's able to play again. This is fantastic news. I just felt like, okay, but I was kind of hoping that Christian Coloco would reciprocate. And it's like I understand why you had to let me go. I'm cleared to play. I will come back to the team now. But instead, it was like, okay, I'm a Clutch agent, and Clutch is with the Lakers, and I'm going to the Lakers. Like the writing was kind of on the wall, but it's like you're kind of doing the Raptors dirty here. They were in a corner. They couldn't really hold on to you. We're not fit to play. So they did what every team would have done, which is we have to waive you, unfortunately. But you kind of hope that would come back. And it's like, okay, well, the Raptors have been in contact with him throughout this, right? Make sure he's okay and all that stuff. So I thought he would do good and by Masai and come back. And unfortunately, he's not. And that's why my frustration level in this is a bit high. And that also adds to what you were saying earlier, right? Like the Raptors need a center, right? So this was, there was a brief moment there where I forgot about him. It's like his name resurfaced. Like, oh my gosh, that could be like not necessarily the savior of this team, but like a really key piece in someone who I can see making his way into this rotation in the near future. But yeah, that's why frustration level's a bit high on this. It'll die down when the season starts, but it sucks it sucks a bit right now.
I feel like I'm frustrated from the sense of this is I'm just looking at the Raptors. We've drafted 47 players in our history, and like I think the narrative is just it keeps getting kind of chipped away from Masai, and I'm generally like a defender of like, similarly, like this guy did the most important thing, which was like build a championship in a market that is extremely difficult to build a championship in. So it's sort of like, for me, it's like, it's almost like a lifetime of like, not benefit of the doubt, but lifetime of like, he just did the thing that was like undoable. So like your critiques of him are kind of, usually a little bit overzealous. But I think, what hurts about this is that like we made that Pirtle trade, and he was sort of like the symbol of like, oh yeah, well, we still got him, right?
Yeah.
We gave away our pick, but we still got him. And I think there was just a lot of like aspirations attached to him that fans had, that I had, like, just looking at this list, right? So 2017, I think that is like sort of the end of like the impeccable draft streak that Masai was on. So I'll just do 2016. So 2016 was Pascal Pirtle and undrafted Fred. Then 2017 was OG. Then it starts. Then it falls off a cliff. So we got Duan Hernandez in 2019. 2020, we got Jalen Harris, Malachi Flynn. And then
50-point werewolf.
50-point werewolf. Shout out Malachi.
Yeah.
50-point werewolf. I love how I know exactly what you're talking about. And then 2021.
Full moon, man. He just,
Full moon, baby.
Teen wolfed it that night.
Teen wolfed it. I'm literally just picturing Michael J. Fox.
That's all it is.
Just undressed.
I'm just waiting for a somersault
It's
dunk.
such a cool part of a movie. Like I'm so, man, I wish that's one of those movies where I was like, man, I would cater for that scene, like, you know what I mean? And nothing against caters, but like I'm bad at it. So it's like I would just like to be a part of that filming. But yeah, anyway, so 2021, obviously we got Scotty. Just nothing else matters. Banton, David Johnson, don't care. So it was sort of like, right, here we go. Like, this is what Masai does. It's great. And then we got Christian Coloco, and then the last three guys, Grady Dick, Jonathan Mobo, and Jacoby Walters. So I just think that, like, as far as like, it's sort of, when we got Scotty, it was like a reminder of like, this is who our guy is. Like, he's smarter than your guy. And yeah, just a lot of aspirations attached to Coloco. Where are you at with Coloco, Andy?
Well, I mean, I'm definitely like disappointed, but like I think I didn't really think about him much after we waived him, I guess, like you could say, like, outside of the like, oh, he's got a medical thing, and I hope obviously he's okay and comes back and all that. Yeah. But like, honestly, before I like really looked into the like circumstances around everything, I was probably like a 2. I was like, oh well. And then I did start like thinking about it a bit more, and I was like looking into like the whole like Lakers and like the agency and all that. And I was like, oh, that sucks. Like, it even sucks when LA like is attractive to like a guy who's barely going to play, You're just like, do you would have played more for us though? It's like, so like, that's the part that I don't like. It's like, I'm not even like gonna be mad if he goes, if he's really good or anything. It's just more like, I don't know. I'd raise it up to like a 6 frustration level.
Yeah, it's a reminder that, I don't know if I'm like putting words in your mouth, but like for me, it's a reminder that guys like Bruce Brown and we'll see. Hopefully he's good this year, and good for us. And like this Christian Coloco, and it's a reminder to me of like the days like when the Raptors weren't relevant. We're a very transient team. Like, there's this vibe that everyone is just like just passing through because I don't fucking want to be here. And it's like, it's part of the reason I'm so anti-tank specifically for the Raptors. Is like, I think a lot of people who are pro-tank, they forget that it's like that there's a lot of people who already don't want to be here. And stringing that together is hard. Okay, let's finish this off with a silly question. DeMar is in TO talking about his book, getting a lot of love. FaceTime Lowry. He, I think people are freaking out about it. It's like, he yet again was like, if I was here in 2019, we would have won a championship. And it's like, okay, whatever. We've talked about that too much, but whatever. But like, I will say I was pretty surprised by him saying like, I would like to return I would like to be a Raptor again. Like that to me, like, yeah, maybe you're in the city, you're just being whatever, but it's like he just has so much love for the city. It's wild. Like, and even after like what happened, and then he went to San Antonio when had to watch everything he was a part of. That's hard. That's hard. And
That
for him,
must have been so hard.
must have been so hard. And it's like I think, I've said this so many times on the pod, but like this is where like my like love of a player versus sort of like I watch a lot of basketball. Like I love DeRozan, but like sorry, I remember my mom called me that day. She's like, my stomach hurts. Like we traded DeRozan for a guy that doesn't even want to play for us. And I remember being like, Mom, this sucks so bad, but like, wait till the guy plays. He's so much better than DeRozan. But it did hurt. And anyways, so that made me think like, in light of like him, Lowry, sort of like coming back for however they do it, whether it's a couple games, whether it's one season, like they're sort of like kind of curtain call. Who's a player that has like no business having a Raptors curtain call? Current Raptor, who's someone who's like their return would be weird or funny or make you mad.
So one bit of clarification. This is someone who's currently still in the NBA, right?
Yes. So yeah, they can't come out of they can't have been retired already. So they got to be former Raptor who is no longer with the team.
All right. I'll go first.
Yes.
All right. So shortly after, sorry, one question, just more of a to clarify here. The NBA season, sorry, I'm going to be talking aloud a bit here. I need to get the timing right. So the NBA season starts middle of October. By then, baseball wraps up. Roughly,
Okay.
right? So let's just say the Los Angeles Dodgers win the World Series. MVP is Shohei Ohtani.
Sure.
And of course, you do the recap of the year. It's like he should have been a Blue Jay, right? And that comes back, and it's like a vivid memory of like, man, we almost had him, that whole stupid flight thing. We were tracking his flight, and it wasn't even him. To make things better, the Raptors come in and say, you know what? We feel bad about this whole Shohei thing. We want to get good vibes here in Toronto. So we're going to bring back Yuta Watanabe, and we're going to retire him as a Raptor, and that will make good for the missing Asian in Toronto sports lore. And that is your most irrelevant retire the Raptor.
This is a great answer. I feel like that would come out of nowhere. And it would be this is the first
totally ridiculous.
This is the first time in a little while where I haven't done this. But about 5 weeks in a row where I'm like, all my last questions are based on the Raptors 30th year anniversary. And this would be a perfect 30th year anniversary thing where we're like, okay. Where it's just like, and before halftime, we're going to retire Utah because he said he's done playing in the NBA. So it's like, if it was just like they just threw that in there, it would be like kind of like, wait, what? Great answer. Andy, who's your former Raptor still playing that would be a weird retire?
Well, is he still playing? No. But has he officially retired? No. The answer is DeAndre Bembry.
Oh, wow. DeAndre
We're bringing him back.
Look, he's like, hey, I had fun in Tampa.
Hey,
yeah.
Listen, it was a good time. I definitely left the bench to fucking brawl the Lakers and definitely got suspended. And listen, I just don't play in the league anymore, but I'm still trying. I'm still trying.
This is the great thing about this too is like this is exactly the reason I picked Utah. It's like pick a Raptor who actually never played in front of the crowd like they played in Tampa. Like
Toronto.
There's no connection to the Scotiabank fans.
Yeah. So he comes back, retires all time as a Raptor, the great DeAndre Bembry.
I hope it's a Tampa jersey. I hope. That's the one.
Yeah,
that gets raised
exactly.
up to
It's,
the roofs.
it's not even a Toronto Raptors jersey. We have a special one made for him. It goes up in a bubble.
This is great. Okay, I feel like you guys have put me in a tough spot here because I had a couple like huge reaches. But I think
We took yours, is what you're saying. Like
Yeah,
we took
I know.
your.
We
You
can
were
read
going to
between
say
the
these
lines
two. Yeah, you're going to say Utah and DeAndre.
I'm picking him because he's still out there, and he played with the G League Unite as recent as if it wasn't last year, it was the year before.
I think
So,
I know who you're picking.
He's still out there. Well, you know who actually also played for the G League Unite? I'm pretty sure Amir Johnson played for the G League.
I think he did
Ignite.
too. Just last
But-
year.
What?
Yes.
What?
Yes. But he would be great.
No,
I think he
that's
would actually
nuts.
be like, hell yeah. But the guy who I'm like also was on that team was Jarrett Jack. So Jarrett
I was
Jack,
not thinking of Jarrett Jack. That's a great
Yeah.
choice.
yeah, Jarrett Jack is coming out being like, my best years were as a Raptor. And we'd be like, I mean, I'm not going to argue with you. Like, thanks for playing for us. But it'd be like, okay. And then sort of a guy where everyone would be like, what the fuck? Give me a Juancho Hernan Gomez. Just rolling in. Like, remember the movie I did with Adam Sandler? And you guys thought it was going to be good? It's like, oh, yeah, I remember that.
You know, I thought you were going to say, actually, he's actually still in the G League now, but not for the G League Unite. Patrick McCaw is still there. He's still in the G League.
Oh, my God, McCaw. Hey, he's a champion.
He's a champ.
Caught 3-time champion.
Oh, yeah,
Three-
with Golden State, right?
3 different teams, I think, too, right?
Yeah.
Really?
Is he the only player to start his career with 3 championships? On
No,
3
I think,
different teams?
I don't think it was. Oh, yeah, it was. It was.
No,
3.
wait. Was it Golden State? I think it was Golden State, Toronto.
It
Yeah,
might have
so
been
not
that.
3 different
I don't
teams.
think he
but,
did.
like,
I thought he did 3 different, but I could be wrong. Yeah,
Because that would mean he played for the who won the next year? Lakers? Yeah, I don't think he played for that Lakers team.
dude, I think he
oh,
did.
and you know what? It was Cleveland, then Toronto. Wait, no.
Cleveland,
Yeah, sorry. He has 3
Toronto.
rings. He does have 3 rings. It's with the Warriors, then the Cavs.
You're
No,
right.
wait, no. That doesn't make sense.
Warriors
They
and the
didn't
Cavs.
win.
He didn't get it with the Cavs then.
Who won the year before the Raptors?
The
He had it was the Warriors. So he won 2
Yeah,
with
okay.
the So it's 2 with the
So, yeah,
Warriors
yeah.
and then
2 of the
and
Warriors,
then, with the
Yeah.
Raptors.
Still though, incredible start to a career.
McCaw. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out McCaw. Also, anytime his name comes up, he was the guy during our championship run who would like pretend to be the other player and play like them so that the players could like practice properly.
Yeah,
I always thought
yeah.
that was a pretty cool thing.
That's a really cool thing.
Yeah, I kind of
That's a
just
Nick
got
Nurse
introduced
thing,
to that.
by the way.
Yeah. What's
What's that?
That's a Nick Nurse thing, by the way. Like his idea.
Yeah,
to do
it's
that,
funny.
right?
Like Nick Nurse does have a lot of innovative shit.
yeah,
That,
yeah.
Really? Because that's in that Lakers book I was reading. Like, what's his name? Penberthy was that for Kobe. Like he had to play like Kobe to like get the other guys to like guard him in practice and stuff.
I didn't bring this up when you were talking about it, but you know who's like super tight with Phil Jackson? Nick Nurse.
Nick Nurse. Wow.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah.
I mean, there you go.
It's
Okay.
like he's one of his like protege people. He like goes to like his like strawberry farm and shit.
Wicked.
Yeah, that's kind of cool, right? Imagine just being like, it's like you're with Nick Nurse and Phil Jackson, and they're like picking strawberries, and you're like, "Fuck, it's hot out, guys!" Like,
Yeah, and he's like, I want you to do me a favor. Go fucking haul that log from the river up to my house. And you're like,
Yeah,
he's
but
testing me. He's
can I
testing
call
me like
Shaq?
he tested Shaq.
yeah, I'm kind of like a weakling, and a
Hey man,
loser.
I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah. So I'm a fucking wimp. And I'm not gonna do that. But I would like your Wi-Fi password, dude.
I'll just be in the guest room.
Anyways, I'm pounding strawberries to hydrate. Anyways,
Anyways, your strawberries gave me diarrhea. Yes, it happened.
Anyways, how do I get out of here? This farmer fence looks intimidating. Okay, it's not barbed wire, but it looks coarse.
Oh man,
Let me out, Phil.
The
You walk slow,
adventures
dude.
of Phil Jackson's farm. Don't eat too many of those strawberries, brother.
Yeah.
He uses that natural
Why
He
does
uses
that chicken have a hat, dude? You know what I mean?
some weird shit going on there.
Okay.
Ugh.
Good times.
Anyways,
Yeah, let's
shut her down here. That's a good ending.
Let's crank this baby all the way down. Jay, you're doing good work at Raptors HQ. What's up? Well, I know people can find your work there, but yeah, give us the goods. What's up?
Yeah, no, honestly, like I'm always happy to jump on the show. This is so much fun. It's like the highlight of my week. Don't tell my kids. So I will say, I will actually plug one thing.
Whoa, burn on the kids.
The last thing I wrote for Raptors HQ probably ties into your last several episodes around the 30th anniversary. My last piece on HQ was about the schedule and how, okay, there's 40 home games, 30th anniversary. Let's plan out a special guest, a Raptor alumni for every single home game. So check that out.
Oh my
I have
God.
a different,
That's like my thing. I'm so
different
sorry.
person on each game, and I try to tie it into the opponent. For example, when the Bucks come to town, I think the special guest should be Grievous Vasquez as a FU for the whole Grievous Vasquez trade. Thank you, Bucks. Things like that. You should check it out.
That sounds incredible. 100% will read that, and I'm sorry I haven't already because this is my jam. Andy, what's up? Tell people about their quizzing.
Forget it. You know what I mean? Next
potential.
week, come down to the Smith House. We got trivia down there. The 25th of September. It's at College and Call. Hey, you know what? Other than that, just be cool.
Yeah,
To your friends and family. Just be cool.
I like that.
Shout out to being cool.
Yeah, shout out to being cool. Enjoy the last bit of summer.
Yes.
And I got a show October 3rd at Teddy Beer. Sounds like a fake name. It's a real place on Bloor, Ossington.
Right on.
A lot of lights, but it's fine. It's a good show. Your stand-up show. But follow me and everybody else. Also check out my WNBA pod at the Pickup Podcast with Catherine Nyker, and make sure to follow and subscribe to everybody on Raptors Republic and check out their good work. And we will see you guys next week.